So we're going to go to our beliefs, and I think this is important to go over because, well, I guess let's ask you, why do you think it's important to go over our belief system with KW when we are submitting an offer? What are some things that we get from this? So what our belief system is win-win or no deal, integrity, do the right thing, customers always come first, commitment in all things, communication, seek first to understand, creativity, ideas before results, teamwork together, everyone achieves more, trust starts with honesty, equity, opportunities for all, success results through people. So why do we need to review these before we're even getting to the point where we're submitting an offer? What do you get from this? How does this apply to what? Getting in the right mindset.
We talked about this last time, the win.
Oh, you did?
Somewhat a little bit.
Okay.
Just because we forget we were flip.
Yeah, right.
So the win-win was a big deal when like we were having the offer, right? Kind of go from there.
Yeah, so what about the win-win is important?
About when you're making an offer that, I guess depending on which side you're on, I guess make an offer, right?
Yeah.
You are trying to get your buyers the home.
Yep.
And in the end, for them to get that, the seller has to accept the offer, so it has to be a win for them, it has to make sense for their owner.
Right. So we're going in with the attitude that we're going to help prep our clients, right? So that they can have a successful transaction and that we're not confrontational during the process, right? We're in this together as a team. Yeah, we want to get the best deal for our client, but we also recognize that sometimes that requires a little give and take from both parties, right? Integrity, I think, is really important when we're going to submit an offer. We need to know who our clients are. We need to know what their pre-approval limits are so that we can operate with integrity from moment one, right? And I can tell you that, you know, from experience working with agents who have integrity, who are honest and ethical, they're going to go a lot further than agents who, you know, are kind of in it for themselves, right? Customers, they always come first. What do you think about that? You're nodding your head, James.
Yes, because I have experience.
Okay, tell us.
Well, I mentioned this last time. I sold a house for someone who committed suicide. And that was really hard for me because I was like, I want to tell the other person.
Yeah.
But for my client, that was not the move. And it's by law, we don't have to disclose that. So
Yeah,
I kept my mouth shut.
that is a really tricky situation to be in. Oh, I can't even imagine. Wow. Wow, yeah. So customer comes first. Be prepared to start over if the offer can't be made so that it's in your client's best interest. Communication, key. So I have kind of a funny story about communication. I really pride myself on being really good at communication, you know, making sure that I'm going almost overboard and providing all of the information that they need, making sure that weekly we're checking in and going over things. But sometimes I guess, or one time, I swear I was doing everything I possibly could do for my client, but they still were like, you're not communicating. And I'm like, what? Like, I've done everything I could possibly do to communicate to you, but apparently, because here's where I made a mistake. I assumed because they had bought and sold and bought another house before that they would know, just remember some things. I didn't feel like I needed to go down to a very basic level with them, but because we're doing real estate every day, we are in it, right? Somebody might have bought a house 5-10 years ago, sold it, bought another one, but they've only done a transaction a couple of times and they don't remember all the process. So I had to go back and go through some basic things that I guess I skipped over, not thinking I skipped over, but I just assumed they knew. So yeah, try not to assume and really dumb it down if you need to. Okay, so today we're going to talk about This is gonna be fun. The agenda. So the offer process, prepare the offer, write an offer, present the offer, respond, and receive and respond, recap, and our daily success. So this quote, some of the best agents I know love nothing more than a difficult negotiation that gives them a chance to really shine, to acknowledge objections, to discover a solution with which both sides can be happy. From the man himself, Gary Keller. What do you guys think about this quote? Is there anything that you like about it? Yes.
I think we need to be not afraid to negotiate. I think as like relatively new agents, being in business a couple of years, we're still kind of hesitant about it. We're like, oh.
I 100% agree with you. And I was in that same position a long time ago. I suffer from migraines and I would stress myself out like beyond when I was needing to negotiate. And I thought like, I need to do like, how can I make sure that my client gets everything they like, I put all this pressure on myself, right? And then I realized later on that this is normal. And I try not to stress myself out anymore, but I would get these huge migraines like right after I would negotiate a deal and I'd be sick in bed for 2 days. And I'm like, this real estate's making me sick. Like, what am I doing? But I've learned since then that, like you said, you know, it's kind of scary at first, but we have to remember that this is normal, that both parties are expecting some give and take, right? Like when we are submitting our wish list, that's our first offer, right? Our wish list of everything that we want, we have to know, and you also have to set some expectations to your client that they might not get everything on here, right? And so expect a counter offer. If you don't get in a counter offer, well then, hooray, we're gonna jump and do some high kicks or whatever, you know? Be super happy about that. But yeah, it's a normal thing. And remember, we're trying to, again, find that win-win on both parties. Oh my gosh. This is not gonna go for me.
And it makes you feel that it's very consistent with the A sessions.
Okay, good.
Always.
This is not cool.
Dude,
All right, okay, what are we gonna do? Okay, go back to the offer process. So I totally skipped over and I don't know how to go back now.
That's the, to go back
Arrow?
a slide?
Yeah,
Up arrow, I think.
up,
No, down.
yeah, that's it.
Is that it?
That's it. Okay, so offer process. Buyer makes an offer, seller responds in one of two ways, or one of three ways. Counter offer, accept the offer, reject the offer. And this is something kind of going from the listing side. Whenever we receive the offer and I send it over to the client to review before we jump on a call and talk about it, I always say in that instance, hey, remember that you have three options here. You can counter, accept, or reject. So in their mind, whatever they're seeing in the offer, if it's like crazy, like for example, I just submitted an offer for a buyer. That's not this offer that I brought, but there's a luxury home that was for sale for like 1.45 billion. And it's older, needed some work. And my clients were like, hey, if we could get it for 1.2, that would be amazing. Okay, normally it would never come down $250,000 on an offer, but I thought, well, in this market, anything goes, let's try it. So we submitted an offer for 1.2, and I had to correct my clients too. Hey, they might reject it completely, and if they do, then we can just start all over. It doesn't mean no, right? Or they might send us a counter, or they might accept it. Well, they sent us a counter. They came back at 1.30. It was 1.2, and I was asking for 3% of closing costs. So that's another 40,000, right? I guess. So then we came back at, they came back at 1.3, no, when did they come back? 1.375, no closing costs. We came back at 1.3 closing costs, and they accepted it. So that's like almost 200,000 below what they were asking. So we were super happy about that. And now we're in the process of negotiating repairs, and that's
A new story.
a new story. We're in the we're deep into it right now. Okay. Any ahas with that? Yes,
Question.
yes.
So you mentioned you're negotiating repairs, you're negotiating certain things. How do you keep your clients level headed? Because I think I've had different experiences with my clients, really emotional, and I'm like this voice of reason. But how do you like prevent that, or even just in the moment resolve it better so it doesn't keep happening?
Well, I don't know, I feel like I need more context. Okay,
Because they're obviously giving a lot of money. Writing an offer is emotional for our clients, because it's like, that's their money, that's their loan, that's their concessions.
right.
So then we explain it, we go through it, we write the offer, we submit it, and then there's always like throughout the due diligence, financing.
You mean like working with like a reactive type personality who like blows up at you or something?
Or maybe that's just been my experience, mostly as far as just reactive people, but
I think the key is setting the expectations that, hey, like this first offer, setting expectations up front. Like, hey, this is the offer process. We're going to submit all these things that you want. Now we are trying to find a win-win. We don't know what they're willing to give. And so we're trying to find something in the middle. And so I thought when I was submitting the offer for it was 1.45, I thought maybe they'll come back at half that. Because in luxury homes, it's like $100,000 is like, I mean, it's a big deal, but it's less than the $400,000. Like it came down to 100,000, that'd be like crazy count, right? But it's kind of working in the tens and the hundreds. It's kind of there. So I was hoping they would come back in the middle, but I had to set the expectation with my client up front and say, hey, this is what could happen. When they sent us that counter offer, the agent did tell us, hey, he's not done, like this isn't his last offer. So that's another thing too, is also communicating with the other agent. And I don't know what your class was last time, but for the negotiating process, the first step, I feel like in the negotiating after you've won your client and you're gonna go submit an offer, is to also create a rapport with the other agent. That's part of negotiating and showing from the beginning, like, this is my experience, I'm good to work with, being communicative with them, I think will help to resolve the problem. So if a client comes back and they're like, well, I'm not gonna buy it now, that's just way too low, then, or way too high than what I'm willing to go. Say, okay, well, you know, you kind of have to give them their perspective, the seller's perspective takes too, and say, well, remember that they're trying to get the best deal, they're trying to net the most amount of money too. And I always come back with facts. So I look at the comps, because that's going to give them, like, that's not my opinion, this is what the market is saying. And you might want it for way below market, but the market says it's worth this. And if you come back with that kind of information, I think it helps to calm them down a little bit and say, okay, but yeah, you're right. It is sometimes very difficult working with buyers who have unrealistic expectations. So trying to help them and set those expectations from the get-go is going to help with any kind of crazy response that you guys might get. Now I have a client who we've submitted, I don't even know how many offers, and he always wants to come in way low, and someday he'll get it. But he's like, okay, I'm not going to do it. We'll walk. So we're on to the next one. And I'm patient with him because I do a lot of other deals with them for the sales side. So, but my husband would tell you, like, I had a client a long time ago, this cute older woman, she's single, she just lost her husband, he had died from a heart attack in her bedroom, and her house didn't have a lot of natural light, so she was just in this big deep depression, but she was also feeling guilty for selling her place, you know, and thinking that the kids were all going to be mad at her because it was like a second marriage, and so they had his kids and her kids. And I started that relationship in October, November, and it wasn't until the whole following September that we closed the deal. So you just have to like keep checking in, you know. She was like ready to go for it, and then she's like, I can't. And then I would call her up and, how's things going? How are you doing? And then she'd say, well, let's go see this house, you know? So it's just that follow-up, and it can take a long time before you get an offer with a client. Okay, so I don't know if that helped. All right, this is in your participant guide. And like you were talking about emotions, what are some other emotions that buyers and sellers might have during this stage when submitting an offer or receiving an offer? Besides like reactive, what are some other things they have before they're getting ready to submit an offer or like going for it?
Anxiety.
Yeah, anxiety, some trepidation, nervousness, excitement, maybe. There's definitely some worry, some cautions, and maybe some impatience. So your job, like James said, your job is to try to be the person who is cool and collected, right? We are not going to, it's our job not to get emotional over it. And trying to be that calming force for them, reassuring them that everything's gonna be okay. This is the facts. But I think if you're communicating and setting expectations and you're doing that in a timely manner, you'll be okay. So, all right, what are some rules about communicating with our clients in a timely manner? What are some things, or how do we communicate with them so that it's done in a timely manner? When do we have to provide documents to our clients? When you're going to submit an offer. I mean, when you're going to submit an offer, when do you provide documents?
Well, hopefully beforehand, you want to be an agency before you really start writing offers with no backing. So
Yeah, so with the buyer, you wanna definitely talk about your agency. Sometimes I take the time to give them a rep-see and just kind of walk them through, this is the steps, this is what we're gonna be filling out. These are some things that we're gonna look for. You'll need to have an earnest money deposit. You need to know your pre-qualification. We need to know how much down you're putting, because the section requires it, right? Do you have a home to sell? All these questions. These dates right here are the most important dates that we have to follow. And I always tell them at this first meeting with them that there are multiple times that we can negotiate during the contract, right? We have the initial agreed upon purchase price. And then the second time to negotiate is when? I'm in the heat of it right now. Due diligence, right? Repairs. And then if the appraisal doesn't come in, we have another time to negotiate. And then, and there's other things that come up during the process that we might need to negotiate on. Okay, so if we're electronically signing documents, as soon as they sign, they're going to receive a copy. Now, some people don't like get that there's a PDF that gets sent to them at the bottom of the DocuSign. So it's sometimes helpful to send them a follow-up email with a copy of their documents, so they see so they have a copy. Even though they have it, they don't always know that they have it.
You send the seller's agent the estimate for repairs, correct? To be able to negotiate.
Yeah, so, well, what I did in this case, there was a lot. Oh boy. Yeah, it has like a boiler system in this house that we're, and that was like not working, tons of plumbing problems. One of the HVAC units has 3 HVAC units, one of them wasn't working. So there was like a huge list. So what I usually start out doing is I send an email. And if I know what the costs are, I might put that in there. But first I'm going to go with, because that negotiating process during due diligence could be a little back and forth, right? So my clients and I, after the home inspection and with the report, we went through it and we looked through all the things that we felt were the most important things. And oftentimes when I am talking to my client about what items we're going to choose, it's usually not all homes have major issues, might just be safety concerns. And so I'm like, look, we're not, some of these things are common wear and tear items, but if it's a safety concern, then we need to ask for it. So I always ask for safety things, that's first. But in this case, with this house that we're looking at, I mean, it's got water problems galore. It's got some HVAC problems, fireplace isn't working, there's some leaks in the roof. And I feel like all of those things are like important. We're not buying a house as is. If we're buying the house as is, well then it is what it is. Sorry guys, you got a $50,000 repair coming up. Yeah. But so what I do is I then create an email list or a document, and I just go through the inspection report, and I don't always provide the home inspection report, the entire report. I might just do, screenshot the sections that they want that apply so that they have the full information for that. In this case, we opted to send them the whole report because there was just so much, and we felt like they needed to have the full story behind it. But so I would create this document, and I refer to like section 2.1.1 or whatever that's on the report, and then I say what the issue is, and I just create this long list of all the things that we want the sellers to fix. Then sometimes if my clients say at that time, hey, well, if they don't want to fix all of this, we'll just accept $2,000, then I might do this huge long list of repairs, and at the bottom say, if you don't want to do these, they'll take X amount of dollars. Then they go back to their client, they decide what ones they're going to do, or if they'll pay money. If we don't put in the money situations like this one, we didn't put in a money situation. I just put this gigantic list of things that we want to repaired, and I put them into sections like roofing, these leaks we need fixed, we need the roof fixed in that area, maybe drywall repair because it was coming down and there were spots on the garage, in the garage. Second part was the plumbing. They came back with this, and they said that before they can make any decisions, they're going to call out some specialists, get some bids. Well, I'm going to get bids also from my contractors, because I want to compare. If they say, oh, it's going to cost whatever, then I want to know. We want a second opinion and from our contractors, so that we can compare the two bids. So right now we're just in the thick of it. We don't know where it will come to. I feel like it all needs to be fixed, but I don't know. That help?
Yeah, and if they say we'll give you 2,000 instead of lowering the purchase price, is there an issue sometimes with selling concession?
No.
Do they count that as?
So there is a form. It's called Resolution to Due Diligence Form. And on the form, can't pull it up on my computer. On the form, there's a section, and there's like, I think 3 sections maybe, and it says like they'll complete the repairs. The second section is they'll take money in lieu of, and then it tells some options, like they can use that towards their closing costs, they can use it towards lowering the purchase price. Is there any other options? I don't know. Anyway, it's in that.
Thank you.
So I always use that form.
Is that what the buyer sends? So the buyer agent is the one who sends that form?
Yeah, I don't see that though, and so we have Nielsen with all the items, so so we had a quick deadline. The deadline was supposed to be Saturday, but we ended up extending it a week, so we had time to get some contractors in there to give us bids. I think you're not on mute.
Yes.
So after we come up with, whatever they're just gonna, whatever they agree to, or if they say, we're gonna give you $30,000, we'll reduce the price. Then we'll fill out the form, get a signed from both parties. And that all has to be done before the due diligence deadline, which is what time? 5 p.m. All the deadlines are 5 p.m. unless it's your initial offer that you put in, or unless you have it in an addendum to be in a later time. Okay. So we're going to prepare our offer. Okay. first, we want to make sure, so before we write an offer, I always make a call to the agent, the listing agent, because I want to find out some information. So this is our opportunity for us to, are you guys in the productivity? Are you on the productivity team? Anyone? No? Okay. So I might have Molly, I'll run up and see if she can make a copy of these too. So when you are going to write an offer, you're going to call the agent, you're going to say, hey, is the property still available? Because sometimes, even if it's not showing on the MLS that it's not available, they could be negotiating and just waiting on somebody to sign. And maybe it's already under contract and they just haven't changed the status. They have like a couple of days, can't remember the exact days, 2 days, 3 days to change the status without getting a fine. I should know that, but I should know what the length is. I never go more than like a day or two. So I think it's 3 days. You want to, like we already talked about, you want to start building the rapport with the agent. So, you know, you're like an agent the other day. Right now I have more listings than I have buyers that I'm working with. So I've listed a house in Saratoga Springs. A buyer who's in another KW office called me, oh, hey, and the first thing she said to me was, where's KW Cedar Valley? And so then we had this conversation about that. We talked about KW. So we're like, you know, we're buddies. We're both with KW, even though, you know, we're not, but I mean, we are both with KW, but we're not buddies, right? But yeah, we created that rapport with each other and did, you know, built some trust with one another. I always inquire about the activity on the home. You know, have you had a lot of showings? Do you had, you know, if there are multiple offers, do you have any other offers on the table? You need to get a feel for it before you go back to your clients and come up with your, you know, final first offer. Ask questions about the seller motivations. Ask the listing agent how they want to receive the offer. Obtain the buyer's pre-approval letter from your lender. Make sure you have that. You want to make sure that you review the tax records and the MLS. Make sure it's telling, because you want to look and see like what's included, what's not included. Make sure that that's clear, because sometimes buyers think that the fridge is included and it might not be included, right? So we need to make sure that's, and solar panels and washer and dryer and anything else that might be in the house that wouldn't normally be in a house.
Question, jumping back to the number 4 and number 3, points up there. If you are the listing agent and you're on phone buyer's agent and they ask you that kind of thing, like, oh, how are you getting offers or what kind of activities on the home? Are you allowed to lie in your agent's best interest, or are you allowed, or do you have to tell the truth? Because in a negotiation stance, not that I would lie, of course, but in a negotiation stance, you say, oh, we've got tons of offers, it's super hot, or maybe that's not the case.
Right.
And on the buyer side, do you always trust what they're?
So, no. I wouldn't lie, but I do try to sometimes avoid answering. Like, I would say something like, or I might say, you know, we've had a few showings, but we don't have any offers yet. You know, that might be how I would go around that, but I try not to give too much information because I don't want them to use that as fodder, leverage. So you do have to be careful in how you respond, and you do have to get the permission from your client to tell them whether or not you have offers. So you can't just tell people, yeah, we have multiple offers. Sometimes the clients don't want anybody to know if they have multiple offers. So you do have to ask your clients how they want you to proceed. How do they want you to respond to that? So, or you could even say, you know what, my seller hasn't given me permission yet to divulge offers. That would be another way around that. So I have some, the reason why I'm gonna run up and ask Molly if she can, in a couple minutes, if she can make copies of this, because it has some good questions for you guys for your offer checklist. So with the pre-approval, I have some questions that you would ask. your client or the lender. And they're just like, how much money do you plan to put down? What's your budget? Can you pay cash above appraised value? How much does my client need for closing costs? What is the timeline after we go under contract? How quickly can they close? Can you send the client through underwriting so that we can close faster? So there's some questions that you can ask the lender. I have them here, and I'll have her make a copy for you. When you're calling a listing agent before showing on a hot property, so if you know, like a couple that I listed were under 500 this last week, so they went really quick. And so that would be a good opportunity to call, right? Or in another market. And you know what, guys, the market's shifting right now, and who knows, by the end of the year, we could be back to 2020. So it's bonkers. It's bonkers the way the market is right now. I don't know. It was like dead from July to December 24th. I got an offer. Like, who would submit an offer on Christmas Eve? I'm like, seriously, people? Like, let me have my family time. But we dealt with it. We did the offer. And then since then, I've gotten 8 houses under contract from December 24th. That's insanity. So the market is doing some good things right now.
If you give me one of those, I can run out.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Here, see if she can make this whole thing. It's like it's out of my booklet.
How many copies do you want?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Ask her if she can make a little packet of that for everyone. Do 10. Okay. So let's see. Back to actually. So some questions. She's gonna go help us out there. That's awesome. Oh, and if you like, the number of homes that sold in December was like around 500-ish for Utah County. And we had 1,300-ish homes go under contract in December. So that shows you like 2.5 times the amount of volume was going down in December that will have closed in January. Now, I didn't look at the statistics to see how many homes were listed in that time too, but just the fact that sold to under contracts, like that's a big deal. So don't get discouraged about the market. If you're working and you're doing this day in, day out, you will get results. Okay, so some questions that I like to ask the sellers when I'm calling the listing agent, when I call, is kind of to go around, like when we're inquiring about activity or motivations or something like that. Like I wouldn't just say, what is your motivation to, I mean, maybe you would say, what's the motivation for the sellers to move? But another way is like, what's the seller's circumstances? That's kind of like a softer way to ask. Do they need a lease back, or do they need a longer close? So those are important to know. Are there any special features that might not be apparent at first glance? So that's good, because sometimes the MLS just, doesn't have like all the, like it has the information, but it might not be as clear. Or even when we're walking through the home, like I have a house I'm listing this week. One of the bedrooms upstairs has an ensuite, but unless you go in the bedroom and like there's a closet and then the bathroom right next to it, and it's on this wall, and the door into the bedroom is right here. So unless you come in the bedroom and like look, you're gonna miss that bathroom that's in the corner. So we might even put like a little sticky note or just something on the door that says, don't forget to see the bathroom inside, just so that they won't miss that. Because a lot of times, even though it's on the listing that says that the home has, 3.5 baths, oftentimes we don't like count them out and look for them. Now I do when I'm going through a house. I'm like, it says it has 4 bedrooms, and then we start searching. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's the bathrooms 1, 2, 3, 4. Like the house that these clients are buying said it had 7 bedrooms. Okay, this house does not have 7 bedrooms, so they're buying. I'm like, maybe 5.
Do you prefer to go off tax data or your own intuition on like number of bedrooms? Because I remember even I did a house where like the basement had these 2 kind of rinky-dink bedrooms, and I just went with the tax data set. Those were classified as bedrooms. I
Yeah,
had an agent complain. They were like, those really weren't bedrooms downstairs, and I was like, not my problem, I just.
So there is a debate on what is a bedroom and what isn't a bedroom. And somebody different people will tell you different answers. Now, if you take the class, it's one of those ones that you get like a certification designation for, it's not appraisal, but I forget which one, but it has something to do with valuing properties. I'll think about it. In that class, it talks about what is a bedroom, and it is, as long as it has an egress window, it counts as a bedroom. It doesn't need a closet. So some people though think that a bedroom has to have a closet. They're like, it doesn't have a closet, it's not a bedroom. Well, actually it is, but it's not. So, I mean, because you could put like in the olden days, they've used like armoires, right? For their closets. So yeah, like I just listed one that had an office, has an egress window. It's not an office in an office location, it's more like in the back, more like maybe somebody would use an office or craft room, but I put it as a bedroom. Because technically, according to one, like the appraisal, I think standardized thing, it is. Thanks, Molly. Okay, and then this is one. Would clients accept a competitive offer before the weekend? Has anybody experienced that before? Where you just list the house on Monday, they know it's a hot property, and their client wants to come and put an offer in like today. And they are wanting you to basically take it off the market before your open house. That happens. You do have to have that conversation with your client, so you can be prepared to ask that. A lot of times, well, for example, most of the times my clients want to wait until the open house because they want to try to get as many offers as possible, right? So that we can have maybe some competing offers. But I had a client who lives in California. His cousin is living in the house. It's kind of a weird situation. Like anytime you're dealing with renters and having to show the home, it's hard. It just makes it harder. And anyway, there's a buyer who was looking at another townhome in the same community. They were going to put an offer on it. And then ours came up, had the basement finished, the other one didn't. And they're like, we're already familiar with the floor plans. We walked through 2 or 3 units in that neighborhood. I know that there are 2 or 3 units already for sale in the neighborhood. They're like, would they accept, or would they look at our offer and accept it before the open house? My client, because he's in California and because his cousin is living in the house and he feels bad that he's bugging them, he took the offer, and they actually did give us a full price offer anyway. So it worked out.
You have a chat on this. I need someone asking a
Oh.
question.
Thanks.
Whoops. No, my bad. It just says, that's what it said. It just says, sorry, my bad. It's probably, I don't know what I did here.
Let's see.
Come on.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have not, like, I just kind of did this.
Do you want me to go back to the slide?
Okay, sure, you can. I just did the packet, that little handout thing. So, and I haven't gone back and looked at typos, and now I'm seeing typos, of course. So pretend you don't see those. Coming from the former English teacher, that's like, you know. Don't look at my typos. All right, so if you go to the back of the first, where it says key questions to ask the listing agent, when you're asking if there's current offers and they say yes, then, you know, congratulate them. Hey, that's great to hear. I just want to make sure that we put our best foot forward when writing up our offer. Can you share some of those details of the current offers? Now, most agents will not really give you much, but I really try to dig, you know, try to get as much information out of the listing agent as possible. So like you could say, well, like if we came in 5% above, this would be in like, you know, last year's market. If I came in 5% above, would that be enough? And, or you can play hot and cold with them. All right, so can you tell me, like, am I getting hot if we come in at this, or is that, you know, play the hot and cold with them and get you throw out some numbers and figures to them. If they say, oh, we're getting hotter or oh, cold, then you know where to go. But sometimes agents will do that. And then let's see, when are you showing the offers to your client is important to know. And obviously price is important for your to your client. On top of that, what else is important to them? So that's some good with the in a hot market too. And like I said, like right now, it's a little bit, it's been slower, right? We're picking up again, but this is Courtney's opinion. Well, I do follow economists too, but this is Courtney's opinion. You know, lots of builders have stopped building a lot of spec homes right now because the market was slower, right? They're trying to get all of their inventory sold, and they're not really starting as many homes. Well, what's going to happen when interest rates start to drop? Yeah, they're going to start buying, and then we're going to have a shortage. We already have a shortage. We're going to have more of a shortage, and prices are going to go right back up, and we're going to need multiple offer situations. So it's very good to be prepared and know, okay, when this market, you want to be poised so that when the market shifts, you are ready. So some things that you can, when you're structuring an offer, when we're in multiple offer situation, is you want to look at the earnest money deposits, see if how much your buyer will consider, how much they'll pay over. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could go over probably another day, but this has some things that you can go over.
Can I ask you, Courtney?
Yeah.
Where would be the best information to find out about one of these homes? Just kind of talking to those builders or kind of.
Yeah, really just talking to them to see like, what do they have coming on board? Like how many homes do they have, you know, under construction or starting? But I know so I'm also in the MRED program at the University of Utah, it's the Masters of Real Estate Development. And so we have a lot of builders coming to the U and to our classes and talking, and Ivory Homes is kind of, they're not affiliated with the program, but they do a lot for the University of Utah. And so Clark Ivory comes a lot and talks, and people from his organization come, and in the fall, they were definitely saying, you know, they've pulled back, Woodside pulled back. I know Century Homes, like I had a client who wanted to buy one of their homes and it was under construction. No, they hadn't started digging yet. And it was a really good offer. And the builder came back and said, sorry, we're not gonna build this for a while. So, and that was in September or October. So they wanted to get more of their inventory sold before they start on the next round, which I get, but at the same time, it's like, and I know they're playing that game too. It's like, when should we start building again before buyers come out of, like, nobody knew that January 1st or actually December 25th that buyers were going to start coming out of the woodworks, but they have. It's bizarre. Okay. Some other questions you want to find out is who's paying the HOA fee, and that's a good question to ask the sellers, the listing agent. You know, are they willing to pay the HOA transfer fees? You want to find out what those are too. That's really important. If it's not noted on the listing, sometimes the listing agents don't put that information on it, but there are some communities that have 0.5% of the purchase price as the transfer fee. So on this house that my clients are buying, $1.3 million, the transfer fee on that is $7,500. That's right. So we need to know that, and we also want to know because that's a negotiating point within the contract. You can just when you're putting in your offer, you can say we want the seller to pay for it, or we're going to split it, or the buyer will pay for it. So if it's a hot market, then more than likely the buyer is gonna pay for that, right? Because we're gonna try to make it so that the seller has the most net possible from our offer. So we might not, we'll pay for our own home warranty, we'll pay for the HOA transfer, we'll put a huge earnest money deposit down, some of it will go non-refundable at a certain time, blah, blah, blah. But in a regular offer right now, sellers are paying for closing costs, right? So, and they're paying for the transfer fees and they're paying for all that stuff. So now it's kind of a huge reverse swing in the market of who's paying for what. Let's see. Anyway. Sorry, this is what I give my team. So it has like, call Courtney if you're doing this, call Scott if you're doing this, give to Elise, so just disregard that. All right, oh, there might be some attached documents on the MLS. Have you guys seen that? Or sometimes they'll put the seller's disclosures or any other pertinent information that's an attachment to the listing. And you can see that the way that it pops up on the listing is there's like a paper clip. And so that's telling you, oh, there's more documents. So check those before you submit the offer too. Okay. On the bottom of the second page says type the offer on the MLS. Use care when writing the offer. So this is really important. Especially if you're not super detail oriented. This is a time where you need to be detail oriented. Pull out all the stops, okay? Nothing turns a seller or a listing agent away from your offer faster than an offer with mistakes. Okay, so you really want to double check everything, make sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed, make sure that the money that adds up properly. You don't want to be responsible for an ill-written contract. And you also, this is part of coming from the English teacher side of me, that when somebody submits an essay and it's in format of the way that I want it to be formatted, right? There's hardly any, there's like little to no spelling errors. They've followed all the things that I've asked them to follow right away. Immediately, I think, oh, student knows what they're doing. And I'm going to grade them easier maybe on the essay part. Same for you as an agent. If you're submitting something and you're putting everything in the way that it needs to be put in and it's spelling is right, you know, that matters. Numbers add up. The boxes are checked that need to be checked or not checked. Then right away I'm saying, okay, this agent is somebody I want to work with because they know what they're doing. And I always go through, after I've written it up, I go back through, I check it again, you know, to make sure it's all good. Okay. Make sure all the fields are addressed. Pay attention to the third party lender, addenda, dates, and conditions. Seller wants to work with an agent who will most likely ensure a smooth and drama-free transaction. So that's important. Okay. Okay, this now, we get this, right? Any questions on getting to this part? Any ahas? Okay, we're writing the offer. So we're going to review with our clients before we write the offer. Okay, what do we want to offer? What price and what terms? Now, I feel like I'm pretty much have a pulse on the market, but if I am not familiar with an area as much, then I might do a CMA on the house to make sure that we're going to submit an offer at the right price, right? So I do a lot of business in Eagle Mountain, Saratoga, Lehigh, South Jordan, kind of areas, Alpine. So those areas I feel like I know, but if I'm going to be submitting an offer, like I have a client who's listing a property in West Valley. Well, I don't do a lot of business in West Valley, so I have to do my due diligence myself as an agent and make sure that, you know, what we're pricing it at. And then if we were submitting an offer for them on another house, which we may, I have to make sure that whatever price that we're going to offer is good, right? And I'm going to provide that to my client, make sure that they understand. That also helps with setting the expectation we talked about earlier, where they might blow up, is before we submit the offer, we're gonna pull comps. We're gonna say, especially if they're wanting to do something crazy, right? Then we need to be able to support that and also justify it to the listing agent. This is why I'm submitting an offer for this price, because these comps say it's worth this. And then they're not emotional and blowing up about it too, and now they have to go back to their client and be like, oh, yeah, they saw those comps. We were hoping that they wouldn't look at those comps, but they did. And so this offer is what the market is very kind of. Okay, so figure out your price, figure out your terms, how much earnest money you're gonna be putting down. We want them to fill out the disclosures as soon as possible, especially for you as a listing agent, so that you know if there's been any problems in the house and you can address that with them. Are there any, we want to check to know who's conveying the property. We want to make sure like who's on title. Due diligence, inspection period, time for the seller acceptance, all these dates, like what are those going to be? What are our financing terms? Or conventional FHA, VA, and you need to know that because there's an addendum if you're filling out, if a client is FHA finance or someone who's VA, right? Those is the same addendum, but you need to know. If it's cash, then instead of providing a pre-approval letter, you would provide a proof of funds letter, which you can get from the bank. Or sometimes I've seen people just take a snapshot of their bank account. You know, they black out their numbers or whatever, but show that, oh, I've got X amount of dollars in my bank account, I can pay for it. What closing date we want to be, and that's why we want to ask the listing agent before, how quickly do they want to close? And then the home warranty, who's paying for the home warranty, how much will it be? So the standard home warranty is probably like $500 or $600, right? And that will include, like, okay, here's the thing. Normally I'll put like 500 on pretty much all the deals, but if there's a washer and dryer included or a refrigerator included, then I up it to the 100. That way the appliances can all be included. Or if there's a second fridge that's being covered, we want to make sure that or a second fridge being included, then you want to make sure that's, you have enough money budget that would cover whatever the home warranty is. Now, I know you guys have heard lots of, I'm going to give you my opinion on the home warranty companies. I like Elevate and Ibex, and the reason why. Silverback is really great too. They're great to work with, but the last I heard, and I would need to check with, what's his name? Darren? I don't know. He comes to our meetings sometimes. The reason why I like Elevate and Ibex is they have no seasoning of title. So most home warranty companies, when you close on a home, within the first 30 days, if there is a leak or any kind of issue, something that breaks, they will not cover. But Elevate and Ibex will. The other thing that I like about Elevate, most home warranty companies will not cover sprinklers. Elevate does. That's a pretty big deal. Okay, another thing is standard homes, standard prices, standard square footage. Like we're talking 5,500 square foot and lower. Anything above that, you need to find out from the home warranty company, whatever one you're going to contact, how much will the home warranty plan be for a home with a larger square footage. So this house that is my clients were buying for 1.3, it's 7,200-ish square feet. Okay. I called Elevate, I talked to Corey and I said, hey, Corey, what would the basic plan be for this amount of square footage? And it was $1,250. We put $1,500 into the, yeah, thank you. We put $1,500. So that way my clients can, add on a little couple extra things if they want to for that plan. So it's important to know that 500 or 600, it will work for most homes, but there are some homes that are bigger, luxury, you have to get a quote on that before you just randomly put in what that might be. And another thing, this is another negotiating thing that we may or may not do with the sellers, which we've kind of thrown it out because the HVAC systems are super old. They're like 18 years, and the life of a HVAC is like 18 to 20 years, right? A water, yes, water heater, maybe like what, 10 to 12 years, maybe, right? So they're all reaching the end of their lives. So another thing that you could do is ask if they won't replace it and put in a new system, which probably they won't, then we're gonna ask for them to pay for a 2-year home warranty program. That way, if something breaks within the first 2 years, and then moving into this house, they won't, like if it breaks, they'll be covered. And also, with Elevate, there's a thing that you can add on. So like for luxury properties, you know, regular appliance package might be for a house, I don't know, 4,500 bucks, 5,000 bucks, right? Well, for a luxury home, we're getting into luxury appliances, like the refrigerators and the stoves could cost $10,000 each unit, right? So Elevate has a program also where you can pay like $100 or $200, maybe it's $250, where you can get, if it breaks, they'll do brand for brand replacement. So for these luxury homes, we want to add that on, because if they have, you know, a Wolf stove, they want a Wolf stove. We don't want a GE unless it's cafe, right? Because that makes a difference. You have to kind of know what's what. The fridges, you know, like a Sub-Zero fridge is going to be way more money, and especially like, you know, some of those houses have the double fridges, right? That not the French door, but like the French door, 60-inch. Each one of those sides is 1 unit, and those are like $4,000 a unit. So that's another thing that you could do as a negotiating point, is ask for that 2-year home warranty if we know that the appliances are. I've done this before at another house in Pepperwood, and it seemed to work well for everybody, because it's like $3,500 versus 3 new HVAC systems, 2 water heaters, all the things, right?
Question.
Yes.
So is that something that we should be looking for, is looking at the dates on all those, or is
Yes.
that out in the appraisal or anything?
Yeah, so during our home inspection, they will talk about that, but I always, when we're looking at the house, I always go into the mechanical room and I look for how old it is. And I also look to see if there's like a green sticker and stuff. Now they'll do that during the home inspection too, but here's the thing, you don't want to, during your initial offer, you don't want to bring up, oh, the appliances are old and this is old and this is old, because we're trying to get the lowest amount that the sellers will be willing to sell it for, right? Possible at the initial offer. And then we want to come back in at repairs and be like, oh, there's all these things that are wrong. You're going to have to deduct another 20,000, right? So that's like, so you want to kind of be careful with the amount of information that you give the listing agent in your justification. You want to use like, well, I mean, you can do some things, but I wouldn't go into major detail on this is broken and this is broken and this is broken, and that's why we're doing that. Save that for due diligence, because there's another opportunity for, now you're locked in, right? And a seller does not want to go find another buyer. They want to work it out with you. So if it means, oh, we have to drop the price another 10,000, okay. And then you're also going to tell them, hey, anyone else who comes in and buys this after us, you're gonna have to start the whole process over. And if they get a home inspection, they're gonna find the same things. So you're gonna have to fix this no matter what. Either you give us money or you fix it. Now, it depends on the situation. Like I think my clients were willing to have them fix a few things and maybe give us some money for the other things, like maybe the home warranty extended for the old things, but then the other stuff, you know, fix. Anyway, there's lots of things that you can go about it, but let's see. Where are we at? Oh yeah, so the repair limits, that goes with the home warranty company. So you need to find out, whatever home warranty company you choose, what are their repair limits for each item. So Elevate has done a lot of things to change their program to make it more desirable. And what I also like about those 3 companies, and I don't know about Silverback if they changed that seasoning thing, but Ibex and Elevate are pretty close, but they're all locally owned, which I like. support our local businesses instead of going with the national plans. Any special clauses? So on that little sheet that I gave you, before we talk about, oh, it talks about some ideas that you can do if it's newer. The title fees, okay, but here's some addendum wording. So an escalation clause means, well, who knows what an escalation clause is?
Isn't it speeding up the process?
No, James, good try though. Or not James,
Alex.
Alex.
My understanding is that you say it's over, they're willing to pay a certain over the highest offer.
Yeah, exactly. So here's some wording that I gave you in this little packet. Escalation clause, in the event of a verified competing higher offer, the buyer agrees to match the competing net offer and provide an additional $2,000 to the purchase price. In the event the seller accepts our offer at the competing offer price plus $2,000, seller agrees to provide the buyer a copy of a legitimate competing offer at the time the counter is submitted. Blah, blah, blah. It's kind of great. So I took this from someone else. Mine's pretty similar that I use though. And then the appraisal gap. So there is an appraisal addendum that you would want to use. So an appraisal gap means that if the appraisal comes in low, so this would be in a multiple offer situation. Typically, if the appraisal comes in low on a regular sale, like right now, then we would just say, hey, sorry, the lender is only gonna lend that if it was 500 and it came in at 480, there's a $20,000 gap, right? The lender's only gonna lend on 480. So we need you to come down to the purchase price of 480. And they're not gonna like that. In a multiple offer situation, then what happens? We get to ask the buyer to pay cash over whatever the appraisal came in. So we have them pay that $20,000 cash difference and still buy the house for 500. House appraises for 480, buyer pays cash on top of their down payment and closing costs. That's why it's tricky, and that's why in like a market like right now, we would ask the sellers to come down because most buyers don't have $20,000 extra hanging around to pay cash, right?
Isn't 8.2 the appraisal condition? You need an addendum on top of that, or is that just covering it?
So this is for the gap.
Oh.
So like, yeah, so the gap is if the appraisal comes in low on 8.2, you have the option to cancel, right? Or renegotiate.
And you're saying that the appraisal gap, sometimes you put in the initial offer?
Only if it's a hot market and it's multiple offers.
What is that?
Because I want my client to get I want them to win the house, right? So right now, I would not add this. Don't do this in today's market. But when we get back to a market, seller's market, where we're up against 10 offers, then I would have this conversation with our clients and say, hey, because more than likely we're offering above what the value is, right? So if we know going in, they're asking 500, we're gonna offer 525. There's a chance it might not appraise for 525. What are we gonna do in that case? Do you have cash to pay the difference? Because your lender will only lend on the amount that it is appraised for. So you're kind of rolling the dice. So you have to make sure that your clients understand and also that they have to understand what they're getting into and that they have the money. So I had one client, he was putting an offer in on a house in Highland. He had lost out on a couple already. We did $10,000 hard at acceptance, earnest money, which I don't love. But he was like, no, we want this house. So, and then he said he would pay $80,000 over appraised value, cash. I was like, you sure? Are you sure you can do this? And he's like, yeah, I want this house. I'm like, okay. I was dying the whole time. Guess what? It appraised. He didn't have to come up with the cent. So. Anyway,
Less than
Wait,
that.
say that again, you praised for what?
it appraised for 80,000. It appraised what we needed it to appraise
Okay,
for,
so
which
it
we had offered
ended up
80,000
appraising-
above what they were asking.
So ended up appraising for more than it was listed for.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was lucky. I don't know. I was holding my breath the whole time. I'm like, what are you gonna do if it comes in low? He's like, well, I have to pay it. And I'm like, where are you gonna get your money? You really don't ask him that. I didn't really ask him, but I'm thinking in my head.
But if the appraise is lower, you could cancel, right?
No, because we waived the appraisal.
Or you waived the appraise, okay.
What's so special about the house?
It wasn't special. That's right. What was special is there were no houses for sale. And he wanted to buy a house in Island. Because, okay, this is a friend that I know from, okay, I won't get into much detail, but anyway, his wife's a little crazy. She's a, what do you call them, a prepper? Do you know what that is?
The world pepper.
Yeah, yeah, end of the world prepper, and she wanted to move out to Richfield and in the hills so that they could have fields that they could, you know, grow their food, and then they would have, you know, a big shed in the back where they could keep it all. And that they could have animals and stuff. So his concession was, he didn't want to do that. His concession was this particular property that we're looking at in Highland. It had, was big enough acreage that they could have animals and a small garden, okay? And, yeah, it had some of the things that they wanted for their prepper. Oh, and I guess for preppers, you gotta live closer to the east bench so that if something happens, you can run to the hills. You're safer in the mountains, not in the valley. I guess so, I don't know, but where's the line? Where does it go through? Who's dead? I don't know. The earthquake. Where does it go? Is it everybody on the west side that's dead, or is it everybody on the east? I don't know. We're taking a risk, people. I live in Saratoga. I'm gonna either die by a fire, drown, or I guess, or blow up from a from a earthquake line. Oh, geez. There was a fire in Saratoga years ago, and it's the end. I live at the end of Saratoga, so like there's one way in and one way out, or we're gonna swim, you know. Okay. All right, there's that. Okay, then I gave you some information about oh, this is if you have a listing, things that you would need for that. And then I provided this new build checklist thing. I think this is good information for you if you're going to be looking at a new build. All right, let's go to review the contract, be sure your buyer understands the contract. Oh, whoops. What did you do? Up?
Yes, or.
Oh, yeah. Review details like price, closing date, inspection, know what's essential in your area, know standard or common terms for offers in your area, avoid some rookie mistakes. I don't know of any rookie mistakes off the top of my head. Anything, anybody have any weird experiences that you've had that you're like, oh boy, I wish I would have known? I don't know. What did you learn on your team?
Feel like just review the contract. There's times where I'd submit the offer and then realize I didn't fill in a certain box that I needed to, and then I was like, frick. You have to like go through and like have your buyers re-sign everything and then apologize to the listing agent,
Yes.
like there's like correct offer.
Yes,
That's definitely big. I usually read through it and have somebody else
that's
double
smart.
check it to make sure it looks good and the wording's all right, especially when there's like addendums, you want to make sure the wording.
Yeah. Exactly. You want to make sure all those are good. Okay, then the next thing that I would do is present the offer to the seller, listing agent, and how I do that. All right, I need to do what? I need to text my husband to remind him really quick. You guys, I have the key. Oh, awesome. Okay, never mind. The sellers are there. Okay. That was stressful. Okay. Sorry. We have a home inspection in like 5 minutes. Okay, present the offer. All right, on this checklist. Now.
What page are you on?
I don't know, it's not numbered. It says download the offer, email to Courtney for review, then upload to DocuSign for signatures. Once signed, prepare the offer email. So when you are submitting an offer email, now this is pretty, I gave this example, you could, my emails, I kind of expound a little bit more, but this is fine if you're not a wordy person. So here's my client's outstanding offer for your client to review. My assistant is on this email. Please include her in all communication. We look forward to working with you and your client. Here's an overview of the offer. Now, at this time, I might add in a little section about my client and their qualification and what lender we're using, and give the lender's name and information if they want to give them a call. I'm going to attach that, and it's going to have his info on it. And then I give a breakdown of, any of the things that are important to the contract that they should know. And then please confirm receipt. Anyway, that's kind of just a rough, loose guide for you to use of creating an email. But, I've seen people submit their resumes, like the agents send a resume over with it. I was like, okay, that's a little weird. But, yeah, I've never done that.
So is this just kind of like a format that you use for all your offers?
Mhm.
And you also put on there like who would be paying for the home warranty or?
Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
So I
it's
put like
it's
$500 in parentheses seller paid.
Okay.
Or, I don't know why they put a dollar sign for possession, but possession, so many days, or if there's a lease back that we're doing, or anything that like, I don't want them to miss in the contract, I'm gonna put here in a little bulleted list.
And then they would say, all right, sounds great, send us a real offer, or send us the rep sheet.
Yep. I mean, mine, let's see one. Okay, so see, I'm a little bit wordier. So mine said something like this. Thanks so much for allowing my clients and me to see the home a couple of times in the last week. I'm submitting an offer on behalf of my clients. So-and-so, they have been pre-qualified with my preferred lender, Scott Manning with Intercap Lending. They are a strong buyer with excellent credit and financials. They live in the same neighborhood as the house, and they are excited to move forward. And then I said offer breakdown, and then I have purchase price, and then I list, this is the offer that we came in at 1.2, $250,000 under. So I didn't mention anything about the actual repairs that needed to be done, but I did say that the home needed updating, because it does. So I said, there are several reasons why we came in with a lower asking price. For example, high interest rates and a declining market. And some of the updating that we feel the home requires.
Question, if there's so if you're gonna offer like below list, will you try to find comps out like, and then send that up
Yeah.
over as well?
Yeah, and they say, I would add that in here if I had some comps. This comp and this comp, sold at this. So like there's a condo downtown that one client that I told you about, I put in like 3 offers for it. Then he backs away after he comes in way low. But there was 2 condos that had sold in this building. One was like 780 square feet, sold for 581. Yeah. One that was 2,400 square feet that sold for 1.2. Then we had one that was under contract for, I think it's 1,000 square foot under contract, but I don't know what it's under contract for, but it was listed for 750. The asking price for this condo is 650. So I tried to use that 581 comp because this square footage on the two were similar. As, hey, we're gonna offer 595, because this last comp, and it sold in October, came in at 581, you know, well, then they were like, no, we're taking 640 or nothing. So my client said, never mind. But, you know, I tried.
Yeah.
And really, when you comp the two with the 700 and something and the 580 something, it did come in at 650, but I don't know what the under contract came in at. Like, what if it comes in, you know, 50,000 lower? Then that's going to change the number. So anyway, that was kind of, but I used the actual sold as my comp. And I put that in there. Okay, earnest money, subject to the sale of their home. I told them with the subject too, that we're aggressively marketing the home and we're going to strategically price it to sell quickly, so that my clients were totally aware and understanding that we're not going to price it high market value. We're going to price it a little bit lower so that they can still net what they need, but so that we can sell quickly. Closing costs, we're asking the buyers to contribute 3%. And the reason why I asked for the 3% is because we want them to pay for the 2-1 buy down. And then the dates are subject to the buyer's home under contract and blah, blah, blah. So that's how I changed that letter a little bit, but I think it's a good form, you know, loose. You can customize it to meet your personality, but yeah. So presenting the offer, and then I'm also, okay, I'm not just gonna send an email. I'm also gonna text the agent and call. Text, because a lot of agents don't look at their email until they have to, right? So, but they look at their text. So I said, hey, I just sent you an offer. Sometimes I'll even give a little breakdown in the text if I can't get a hold of them on the phone, but I want to call them and just like discuss it with them if I can't get a hold of them. Again, when we're submitting, we're just going to double check everything, add the documents to command if you haven't already, order them logically too, and that's how I present them. So in DocuSign, sometimes when you add has anybody played around with command and DocuSign yet? Okay, so when you do it, when you add docs to the room, they might not be ordered the way you want it. So what you do is when you open the envelope, start an envelope, you just shift them around so that it makes sense. I want to make sure that my rep sees first, addendum 1, 2, 3, 4, it's all in that order. Because then when it sends as a PDF, at the end, it's all in one document in order. So I do that also with the listing docs, the buyer agency docs. Sometimes when they pop up, it might put the addendum as the first because that's alphabetically how it would do it, right? So I move things around. So I want to make sure that the exclusive listing agency agreement is first. Any addenda that come after that, wire fraud, all the things I would put after. So you just want to put it in a logical sequence, and label everything clearly too. And yeah, make sure you notify the listing agent in a couple different ways. All right, receiving and responding. I feel like we spent a really long time on that. Sorry, it's 11. Okay. So first thing that you're going to do is you're going to look over the offer and make sure that it's complete, that they've signed it, that they haven't missed any boxes or certain things. We're going to confirm receipt of the offer. So what I usually do is I just send a quick email back, received, boom. If the agent has texted me to tell me that they've sent me an offer, then I'll look at it, I'll say received, and then I'll text them, got it. Then we all know. Then we're going to get the offer to the seller in a timely manner. Now there's a couple of ways that you can present the offer. Some people like to hold everything until like the very, like when they want to have that conversation, you know, hey, I'm going to send it over at this time and then we're going to call the agent. Well, what I usually do is I prepare a net sheet with the offer, all the important things. and how much I know, how much they owe, I'm gonna deduct that. I'm gonna send that net sheet over with the offer is what I do. But you can kind of decide if there's multiple offers, sometimes people like to get them all at one time. So they're not like getting offers in several different emails. Sometimes it's helpful to just put it, and if I do have multiple offers, then I have a spreadsheet that I have created that's like my net sheet, but I just have different columns for offer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when I have multiple offers, I will go through and I'll rename all the offers, offer 1, offer 2, offer 3, offer 4, so that on my spreadsheet they match. So they know which one to look for. So, and then I'll call them up. I want to give them time to read it, process it. Hey, why don't you read this over, think about it, and let's talk in an hour. Does that work for you? And then we get on the phone, we talk about it. And at that time, I want to make sure that I've looked through everything. I've noted some things that are concerns for me or things that I like about the contract. I like to do both likes and concerns. And then have that phone call and I'll say, hey, before I jump in and say, you know, I love this, I didn't like this or that. The first thing I'm gonna ask them, hey, what did you think? Because a lot of times the sellers, like, I'm thinking the worst, right? Oh, they're gonna hate this, or they're gonna whatever, right? But a lot of times the sellers have already kind of thought through, oh, I really liked it. You know, I'm kind of, you know, I want to know what they're thinking about the offer before I jump in and give them my opinions. Then kind of go from there. Because what if it is priced lower and what if they're okay with that number? And I think they're not going to be okay with it, but then they are. And I don't want to put that thought into their heads that they should be concerned, right? Until I know where they stand. Because sometimes sellers act like they don't reveal all their cards to you either, right? Because they're negotiating too, and they don't want sometimes their agent to know what is my bottom, what's the lowest I'll go. They might tell you what their lowest is, but it might not be their lowest, right? So, yeah. Okay, call the buyer's agent, discuss it with them, call their lender to verify the pre-approval letter. And like I said, I kind of outline create a document net sheet or a spreadsheet that has it all laid out for them, so that we can go through it. If you haven't created every offer this is important to know. Oh my gosh. Hello? The inspector should be there. They said that they let him in, that they left. So just go in and let him know that who you are, introduce yourself. Yeah, I forgot to give you the key. So that wouldn't have helped. Okay. Okay, thanks, bye. Boy. Yeah, because it's renters, they didn't want a key box. And so I'm just carrying around the key in my car, and then I say, hey, husband, will you go meet the inspector? Okay, create an offer in command. Every offer that comes in, whether they accept it or not, you're supposed to put it in there. The broker needs record of any offers, rejections, whatever need to be in command. So you'll need to make sure that you do that. Okay. Kind of back to the beginning, buyer makes an offer, seller responds, counter, accept, reject. So in that conversation, after we've, had a little bit of time to process, we're looking at the bottom line. Then we talk about the options. Well, what do you want to do, seller? Do you want to, does this look good? Are you happy with everything? Or do you want to counter anything or reject anything? Sometimes if it's good and they're like, well, it looks good to me. Like, what do you think? Well, it looks good, but I want to make sure that, like, how do the dates look? Because sometimes those are things that we often overlook. How far is that due diligence deadline? Is it way out, or is it, normal? Like a typical contract, right, would be 7 days for sellers, 14 days due diligence, 21 financing and appraisal, 30 close, right? But in the hot market, what did we do?
It's like 2 days due diligence.
Right. 2 days.
5 days.
We're gonna give the seller disclosures like at the time of offer or before that, we're gonna have them posted on there so they have them and they wanna submit it, sign them with the offer. And maybe they have 2 days to do their inspection and get back to us and tell us it's okay. If it's 14 days out for due diligence, even though that might be a typical thing, I do try to shorten that up a little bit, like even if we can get it to 10 days, you know? And I don't think that we need 7 days to give sellers disclosures, but you do have to factor in time for the title company to send and do the PR if you haven't already started that. So they'll need to, so that takes them like a day or two. So give them at least 4 days for that. Okay.
What did you say again for the typical timeframe? for
Oh.
appraisal?
It's 7 days for sellers disclosures, 14 due diligence, 21 finance and appraisal, 30 settlement.
Thank you.
If somebody goes over that, but I try to shorten the sellers and due diligence a little. I mean, you don't need to be as extreme as 30 offers extreme with 0. But
Usually inspect, like depending on the inspection company you go through, they can get out within a couple days.
yeah, they can. So another strategy, this is with, I learned this from Jen Gray. Sometimes as part of the offer, they'll already schedule the inspector. So when on that phone call, hey, I've already had my inspector scheduled for Monday, if everything works out, like, you know, whatever the days are. That's sometimes good because they know you're serious. You've already gotten your personnel and they know that you're going to be quick about getting the inspection done. So if you feel like you need that extra leverage, do that. If they accept the offer, you're going to begin to contract to close. If they reject, this is important. The buyer agent contacts the listing agent to learn more. Don't assume no means no. If you come in with a lowball offer and they reject it, then just bump up your offer and submit another one. Well, call them first, but you know, yeah. And that's another thing we do need to be cautious of, lowballs and stuff, that we're not offending anybody. So, and before we did send that way lowball offer, I did ask the agent, hey, is he willing to negotiate? He said, yeah, he's willing to negotiate. He didn't really give me much, but he said he knew that he needed to negotiate. Okay. Do we need a role play? Do we want a role play?
Love your-
You love role playing?
I'm weird, but
Okay. Let's see. Let me see if I can find a role play.
Also, just so you know, I think this is missing some pages.
Oh, should we look at this? Oh, did they not? Oh, they didn't do double-sided. Oh, crap, I forgot. Let's look at this offer really quick. Part of the assignment was this for me to bring a messy contract. So I'm bringing a messy contract. I'll have to fill you in on some of the details, I guess, because they.
Yeah, I'm missing some key stuff here.
Oh, shoot, she only did front page. Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's important to know. Okay, so, oh, whoops, and I forgot to block off her name on the front page. Every other page I did. Okay, so my client was the seller, and going back to your situation with the suicide thing, which was awful. By the way, but I had a similar situation, not suicide, but death. So my client had called me in this summer. She's like, hey, I'm thinking about listing my house. I'm moving to Washington. Can we get it listed? She's like, but I'm also thinking about renting it. Okay, well, I showed her what we could list it for, blah, blah, blah. She decides instead of selling it, she's gonna rent it. She gets the renter in there. Within 2 weeks, he died.
Well, renter?
Yes. And now we're dealing with, okay, now we have to get, like, his name was on the lease. Nobody else's was. So, and there were a couple adult kids living there. What happened? They had a big old party and we found like a joint outside. Taking stuff, I'm like, I really hope this house they didn't smoke meth in here because, but I didn't, I don't think they did, because they did do tests, but it was scary. Let's just put it that way. I'm like, oh crap. So anyway, she had to pay out the kids to get to get them out. Plus it's like sticky because he just died, and now you're like, oh, and now you have to vacate. Anyway, it was really rough. She got him out within 2 weeks. We had to have it totally clean. She wouldn't go into the house. She's Italian and is very, yes, superstitious beyond. And so I was like, oh, I'll sage the house. So I saged the house, trying to get the energies out, clear the energy. Anyway, she would not come in. She's like, I'm never going back there. We have to sell it and I'm not going in. Here's all the keys, all the everything. You figure it out. So there was a few things still in there. We had to clean out. Then we staged it. And yeah, I couldn't stage that. Oh, I should put that on there. But yeah, that was a weird thing because I couldn't disclose that either, even though like everyone knew around.
All the
neighbors know.
I did an open house and all the neighbors were like, we're so sorry to hear about. And I was like, shut up. Like, people are walking through the house, like, don't say anything.
Yeah, it was crazy. That was probably one of the craziest things I've had to deal with. But we sold it. It was in Daybreak and it went pretty quickly considering the timing or time of the market. But yeah, she had a bunch of things that were included. So there was a hot tub. She left the washer, dryer, refrigerator, all the things. There were patio items. So we sold that. They offered, I think the house was listed at $650. I think we started at $660, dropped to $650. They gave us the offer for $635 with $3,000 earnest money. Their house was under contract or was subject to sell. They had to sell a house to buy this house. Now, when they called and talked to me, they already had a buyer and it was already under contract. So we felt good about that. Because if it was like they were just getting started back in September, October, it was rough. Like, I don't know when they'll get a buyer, but they have one. So that was tricky. Possession was upon a recording. The HOA fees were split. So Daybreak is a 0.5% deal. It's 0.5% of the purchase price is the transfer fee. So yeah, so we split that between us. That's on the back page that you're missing. It is conditioned upon due diligence. It is conditioned upon appraisal. They did require financing. The initial offer had addenda 1, 2, and 3 with it. So the home warranty, the seller was to pay for it. They didn't put a price in there. That was weird. Oh, it was will not be included. So one was not included. The dates, it was supposed to be a pretty quick closing. November, well, all the deadlines were November 3rd, 7th, 16th, and then see addendum 1. So for addendum 1 was the flexible settlement date. So they had it between the 17th and 28th. And they asked for $10,000 of closing costs. So the net offer was $625, right? So they also gave us that they wanted the earnest money deposited with their title company. That was addendum 2. Addendum 3, which you don't have, I guess, is a subject to sell of the buyer's property. And like I said, it is in here and it said it was under contract. They let us know. Addendum 4. So we countered. She had a certain net that she wanted to make. So we countered at 641.5, and all other conditions remain the same. So I think she ended up coming out with 120 or 30,000. Addendum 5, we had to change, then it was the spelling error, the last name. So that's important, names. Addendum 6. So they did have a home inspection. And I can't remember what was wrong, but this is that resolution to due diligence form that I told you about. Is that in there?
Yeah. Addendum 6.
Addendum 6. So this is the form. So they asked for a price reduction. So the new price 641. Now, the first one they sent me had $500 there. So they were gonna, they wanted us to sell the house for $500. Yes, done. So I actually called the agent. I was like, I think this is wrong.
That's really well.
We'll take it. but-
We'll take it, but I think that's wrong.
How's that price reduction if it's 641, if the original was 635?
So the counter offer was 641.5.
Oh, all right. that makes
Yeah,
sense.
so that's
reduction,
on
okay.
addendum
Yes,
5.
4.
okay,
Yeah.
so it's a reduction from that 641.5,
Mhm.
okay.
641.5. So we redid that form. And then 7, okay, their buyer backed out or they couldn't get their financing. Luckily, yeah, luckily they had another buyer, a backup. So it kind of worked out and they were able to slide them right in, but that was scary. So we ended up extending due to them not having their home under contract, we extended to the 20th. And then we had to extend again to the 9th.
Oh my.
And then we closed on like 10th or 11th. Oh, the buyer's agents were going on a cruise, so they wanted to close on the 21st. I was like, no, they're not gonna close on the 21st. Like, why would we do that? If the finance deadline is the 9th, you can close within 3 or 4 days, right?
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, well, we're not gonna be here. I was like, whoa, well, you know, just fine.
Pay for
Well,
Wi-Fi.
you keep separate closings.
Pay
too,
for-
but-
They have a way
Wi-Fi,
of- Our agent didn't even have to be there if they didn't, I mean, you should always go to closings, but if there's a extenuating circumstance, there's an extenuating circumstance. So I don't know, that's just a copy of one, sorry that it was printed off incorrectly. Any questions that you want to go through? I feel like we did a lot on submitting an offer, but not so much on receiving an offer. Any questions on receiving an offer process?
I just want
Well, you-
to.
Yeah.
I think it's always good to get second eyes on whenever you get an offer.
Yeah, I
Show
agree.
another agent, just be like, this is what the market is, what do you think?
Yeah.
This is what I think.
Totally agree. My husband and I do that a lot. I guess if you don't have a spouse, then you don't have that opportunity to do that, but maybe you have a friend that you work with or a colleague, or you're on a team or something that you can do that with. But even when we're pulling comps and doing like, to do a listing presentation, my husband and I will do them separately. And then we go and compare and see how close we are. If one of us come in like significantly different, then we are like, okay, well, how did you get that? And okay, why did you do that? Why did you justify, how did you get that number? And we talk to each other about it. And then we're like, okay, we decide on whether or not we agree with that person in the decision. But most of the time they come in pretty close to each other. So we know that if we're both doing it, that it's as close to as correct as we think it is. There are on our Facebook page or KW agents for Westfield agents. Sometimes if you have a really hairy, you're having a tough time trying to price something, you just like, hey, would anybody be willing to look this over? There's a few people who are, there's always somebody who will be willing to. And it's usually some of the agents who've been around a while who will look at it for you. I would say Sherry Booth, I can, Becca Summers does look at them. Calvin is pretty good at pricing things. He's a very logical minded person. Good with the number stuff. Yeah. There's always people who will help you. If you don't have somebody you can, go to, there's someone in the office who's willing. That's what I love about our office and what I love about KW. I've been at a lot of different brokerages before I landed here. And at the brokerage I was at right before this, I felt like everybody was just so protective of their knowledge, their stuff, their just anything. They were just so afraid that if they shared anything, that I was going to take business from them. Guess what, guys? There's enough business for all of us to thrive.
What brokerage are you at?
I wasn't at Berkshire, no, I was at ERA. In Lehigh. Here, it's so different. It's like, if you want to know anything about anything, like everybody is pretty willing to share. The Red Sign team, last year they did this, they like opened up their business and they did a whole day class on, if you want to learn how to create a mega team, this is what you do. These are the services. This is it. This is all the things, everybody's roles. These are the extra things we pay for. This is where we get our leads. This is how we do everything. It was awesome. Peter Merkel's really awesome about sharing. Dan Kennedy is, just everyone. So if you ever have a question, like, don't feel like you can't ask, especially here at our brokerage, because the culture here is just that, like, we believe that, you know, the more we help others, the more we'll get in return. That whole Zig Ziglar mindset, right? Yeah. Anything else? We good? All right. If you have a question about anything, don't feel like you can't reach out. You can call, text, email,